everybody, welcome back inside the Stash Project. We're moving along in our All Japan Touring Car Championship Series, and this video is going to focus on the 1991 season. So, the 1991 season was a little bit of a interesting time, both within the racing series itself and what you can do with the kits as far as they exist, because this is sort of a, not necessarily odd per se, but just a not as well covered as you would think time in the as far as the kits and the decals go. So within the actual racing series, you saw last year in 1990 with the rise of the R32 GTR pretty much coming in and face stomping the entire series, rendering all of the other Class 1 cars effectively irrelevant. And so in 1991, you saw several more teams develop in their GTR programs because, well, that was the only way you were going to win. There were still a few Ford Sierras running around at the very, very beginning of the season, and for several of those teams by mid-season or late in the season, they had also switched to the GTRs. So there were 6 GTRs total running. There are decals or kits to do 5 of them, and only because the one car, I don't consider the kit and the decals are for the 1992 car, and so technically speaking, I don't feel comfortable putting in the 1991 season because I don't know that the kit, the decals themselves are necessarily compatible with the 1991 season livery that ran. So that being said, there's really only one Class 2 car that you can build so far, as it stands right now. Perhaps more decals will come out eventually, but right now the only Class 2, or actually Class 3 car that you can build is this. The out-of-the-box livery of the Idemitsu Motion Mugen EF9 Honda Civic from BMAX. So the decals are in here to do this car specifically. We talked about using this car as a base for several decal pull liveries for the 1990 season. Now, it is possible that you could pull some of those forward into the 1991 season, but chances are several of the associate sponsorships will be incorrect. Just looking at like the PIA livery between 1990 and 1991, there are several small but yet visible differences in the associate sponsorships that, like, I would not personally, and this is just my retentiveness about race car liveries, would not feel comfortable just putting it on there and being like, oh yeah, it's a 1991 car. Sure, don't pay any attention to it, because in my mind, I know it's not. So there's this car. This vehicle did win class-wise, did win the 2nd and 6th races of the year as far as being first place in its class. So it is a podium car nonetheless. So there is that kit. And we're putting that one to bed, and that'll be the last we see of the boxy Civics anymore. And then within the GTRs, the R32 GTRs, there was one kit, and this is one I don't have either, mainly because it's so hard to get one of these kits with an actual functional set of decals. A lot of them have, over the course of the time, yellowed quite badly, and that is this. That is the Team Axia Nissan Skyline GTR, the Tamiya kit. Effectively, this kit is no different than any of the other 2 Group A JTCC cars that Tamiya put out. Remember, they put out the 1990 season Calsonic car. There is this car, and then we're going to see another one for 1993, and that we're going to actually do have. This kit, for the most part, like I said, it's very hard to get this with a functional set of decals because all of those Axias and the number placards, when you look at the decals on these kits, tend to have yellowed very badly. There were aftermarket sets of decals available for this at one time. They are not now. I believe there's somebody on eBay who sells these decals from China, but good Lord knows what kind of quality you'd actually get out of those. I've seen some people get some, basically pirated, reprinted kit decals out of China and have them be great, and I've seen some people get some pirated kit decals out of China and have them be like half of the decal sheet for some reason, or not at all, like usable decals. So very, 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 very large caveat emptor on getting any kind of just random $5 Chinese water slide decals. But I mean, they are technically out there. So there is that kit, and then that team did get a couple of podiums, lower podiums throughout the season. They didn't actually win any races. The championship car for 1991 was Hasami Motorsports. in their Reebok livery. Now, they ran 2 different car numbers during the year. They started out the car with the number 50 on it, which of course corresponds to the 1990 livery, and then throughout the course of the year, they changed it to the number 3. Studio 27 made a set of decals for this team back in the day. Probably at this point, those decals, as far as the drawing goes, those decals are probably 10 or 15 years old. Now, Studio 27 has reprinted several of the GTR sheets over the course of the years, and several of them are still available as we will go through the seasons. But that one specifically is not, and it is at this point in time the only set of decals ever done for the 1991 Hasami Motorsports car with both of the number placards. So, Godspeed and good luck with that. The team itself finished first in the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th races of the season, and like I said, won the team championship. The Team Impol, which is the Calisonic team, they were forced to change to the number 1 for the year 1991. And while this is very similar to the decals, you think, oh, I just got the 2 out of the Tamiya decals, that wouldn't look quite right. So Frankie over SK Decals got you back on that. He has a sheet of decals that actually have all of the liveries in them to do the 90, 91, 92, and 93 cars. We'll show them individually as the seasons go through. But this one in particular is for the 1991 season, for that one moment in time where the Calisonic car ran just the single numeral 1. So that's out there. If you're interested, you of course put that onto the Tamiya kit if you have one, or you can put it onto the Fujimi kit if you so desire. The cars that actually existed beyond that, out of production kits, but it's not that terribly hard to find all the time. First up is this Fujimi kit of the Team Tyson car. There's also a set of decals that was done by Studio 27 for the 1991 Team Tyson car, also out of production. The kit, relatively speaking, is easier to find. Of course, it has the same problem as every other 15 to 18-year-old, or actually really close, probably closer to 25 years at this point, old kit, and that is there's a lot of white printing on a dark colored car, and chances are those decals are not going to be any good anymore. And like I said, there's no real, actually, I take that back. Now that I think about it, this is the one set of decals that, I don't know why, but somebody, I think, requested it, and he sells them if you ask nicely. There's a, I'm not sure where they're out of right now. I didn't look it up. It's somewhere in Eastern Europe. I'm not sure if it's in Ukraine or it's Poland or Czech. It's somewhere in that general vicinity over there. A company called KMP. You find them on Facebook. And they do this decal livery. So you can actually do this without tracking down this kit, because the kit itself, the car itself, could be built directly out of the Fujimi Group A car that was reissued with no liveries. So that's an option if you want to go after it. I'm glad I thought about that. I'm not sure what made that bell ring in my head, but be that as it may, that car won the 1st, 4th, and 6th race of the year and just came in 2nd in the championship points. And then the last car for the GTRs that are available, and this is sort of a pick your poison kind of thing, you have the Fujimi 1991 Napolex car itself, the kit, out of production. I haven't seen one of these for sale in quite some time, but Studio 27 still runs off that decal sheet, and you can purchase it through most of your Japanese vendors. I'm pretty sure Hobby Link Japan can get you this if you ask them nicely. So yeah, the way this is sort of constructed, and I'm not sure why the 12s aren't just part of the decals, but obviously this is a very, very large panel decal type of a situation here, where your fenders are one decals, the whole rest of the side of the car is another, hood's a decal, roof's a decal, trunk's a decal, back bumper, front bumper's a decal. So very much a have fun trying to lay that down kind of thing, because the R32 is much more roly-poly than you think it is when you get right down to it. But of course, you can throw this decal sheet onto either the Tamiya kit or the Fujimi kit, and you're on your way with the car that, for the 1 year, stole the number 12 from Team Impol. I'm not exactly sure why that happened. I've never really found anything in my research. Granted, it wasn't like super in-depth research. As to why that happened. Why, for 1 year, Team Impol lost their 12. Might have been a registration thing where Naplex got in first. Might be an ownership change with the people that actually own the number 12 and team and pole itself. It might be like a NASCAR thing. I'm really just sort of stepping out on a complete speculation thing here because I don't want to understand, but didn't actually look up how the numbers are attached to the cars. Like if there's a charter system, the way NASCAR is, where you can, there's a charter for the number of the car. I don't think it's done. Actually, I don't think NASCAR charters are done that way anymore at all. But it used to be that the number came along with the car kind of thing. That's why. Petty Motorsport still just has the number 43 to this day, because who else would run it, right? So that, guys, wraps up the 1991 JTCC season as far as kits and decals that are available. The 1992 season is a much more interesting season, both in terms of decals that are available for the cars, kits that are available to be built, especially in the Group 2 and Group 3 divisions. Other than probably the 1994 season, the 1992 season represents one of the two seasons for which the most support exists, and I don't know why that is exactly, but hey, I'm not going to argue with it. So we'll look forward to telling you guys all about that one next time around. So we hope you enjoyed it. Learn yourself something, and we'll see you guys on the other side.